welcome back to Site Talks with Ellie and Zuleika. And today's learning theory that we're going to be going deeper into is emotional learning theories. We're going to be looking at two very famous psychologists, John Bowlby and Erikson. Are you excited today, Ellie?
I'm really excited.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's just get into it. So I'm going to start off with a little bit about Bowlby. So John Bowlby, known as the founder of attachment theory, was born in London in 1907 to an upper-class British family. He was mainly raised by a nanny rather than his parents, and his mother followed the social norms of the period and believed mothers shouldn't spoil children with too much affection. What do you think about that?
I think some people would view that as outdated, but some mothers would still keep that up.
Yeah, some follow it.
Yeah.
So he didn't see his mum much because of this, and he said that this influenced his understanding of emotional bonds and separation. And then his nanny left when he was 4, which was quite distressing for him, and planted one of the earliest seeds for his later work on the impact of separation in childhood. Then he went to boarding school, which he described as emotionally cold, and then went on to initially study medicine, and then switched to psychology, where he trained in psychoanalysis and worked with children with emotional and behavioural difficulties, especially during and after World War II, when parent separation was quite a big issue at the time. So all these experiences, so his childhood and his clinical work, eventually led him to develop what's known as attachment theory, and it's a theory that shaped how psychologists and educators understand early childhood experiences and their long-term impact. So, with that background in mind, I'm going to pass over to our first expert of the episode, which we've invited, Charlotte. How are you doing today?
I'm really good. I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, we're really happy to have you. So Charlotte is an expert on John Bowlby, and she's going to help us understand a little bit more about him. So Charlotte, what was the first initial reason that made you want to study him? What about him stuck out to you?
That's a really good question. I think I really like how Bowlby and his theory connects experiences you make in childhood with your attachment behavior in adulthood, so that everyone knows what I mean. Bowlby basically talks about this innate biological need of children to form a really strong attachment with a primary caregiver and other caregivers. So caregivers are people who basically take care of the child and their needs, so parents, grandparents and educators as well. And in this he argues that it's not just important that they form an attachment at all, for example to ensure survival, so that if the child is hungry it gets fed, but also how the type of the attachment is, so is it really loving or distant, or does the educator or caregiver blow a bit hot and cold, which is important according to Bowlby because he says that all of these social experiences we make in childhood act as some sort of behavioural and emotional template. So we make an experience in childhood and kind of store it and then transfer it to new relationships, which can, for example, explain a common phenomenon of you get triggered in an actually really healthy relationship because you associate certain behaviour with certain experiences. To put this in a bit of an academical spoken term, Bowlby says that we form mental representations of relationships in childhood and ourselves, so do we feel valued and appreciated in this relationship, and save them and form an internal working model, so this template that we transfer. I basically really like how nicely Bowlby and his theory connects the influence of childhood relationships with the influence on an individual's self, that also highlights the importance of educator behaviour.
Wow, that's quite interesting. Thank you very much for that very good in-depth analysis. Thank you. So, as you were speaking, I did have a question that I just wanted to ask you about, and it was, do you have any personal experiences that could have inspired you to further your studies, or anything that you could relate?
That's a really good question. I think now that you're saying it, it actually makes me reflect on my preschool experience, because I had an educator who I really liked, and she kind of took me under her wing, and I invited her to my birthday and she came to my birthday, or she made an entrance in my friendship book. So I found really strong positive attachment, and I think I also experienced a strong sense of agency because she actually came to the things I invited her to. So I think that kind of led me to like have a really positive basic attitude towards teachers throughout my whole school time. So like I kind of orientated myself on their like style. So yeah, I had a quite positive attitude towards them. So I think Bowlby would probably say to this that I formed an internal working model that consists of those positive experiences. So now I just it's a lot easier for me to transfer them to new situations and new people, or like behave positively in like an educational environment. Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. So it's amazing how that one positive experience shaped how you view the rest of your teachers in your life. Yeah, it's interesting. So, moving on from Bowlby, we're going to be learning a little bit more about Erikson, and this is where Ellie's going to take over.
Yep, so I'm going to introduce you to the background of Erikson. If you've never heard of the name, he was a major figure in psychology who was best known for his theory of psychosocial development. Erikson was born in Germany in 1902 to a Jewish mother. His mother separated from his biological father before he was born, and Erikson grew up believing that his stepfather was his real dad. When he later discovered the truth of this, it deeply affected his sense of identity, something that would eventually become a major focus of his work. As a child, Erikson got rejected from grammar school because of his Jewish background, and this experience of feeling different and unsure of who he was strongly influenced his later ideas about identity formation. Then, in the 1930s, Erikson and his wife fled Nazi Germany and moved to the United States, but before leaving Europe, he had studied and trained in psychoanalysis in Vienna, working closely with Anna Freud, the daughter of Sigmund Freud.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting, isn't it? Despite never earning a formal bachelor's or doctorate degree, Erikson went on to hold teaching and research positions at several prestigious institutions, including Harvard University. Erikson continued writing and teaching throughout his life and then eventually died at the age of 91 in 1994. So that's just a bit of background from me, but I am joined by Ikra, who is an expert in Erikson, to tell you a little bit more. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. So, could you just tell the listeners a little bit more about Erikson's theory and what he proposed?
So he believed that development comes in 8 stages from birth to old age, and he talks about the challenges each stage comes with, and that obviously every individual has to go through. And obviously he acknowledges that everyone develops at different speeds, but he does believe that these 8 stages obviously everyone has to go through at one point. And yeah.
It's really interesting. I think the listeners would be very interested in that. Do you have any personal experience that reflect his stages and his theory?
Yeah, so one of his stages is trust versus mistrust, and obviously when I was a child, I didn't have the most trust in my teachers, because my mum, when she would drop me off to nursery, would obviously just leave me there, and I would cry because I thought the teachers were trying to replace my mum and take me away. So I saw the teachers as evil people. And it did take me a while, but obviously for the first, I'd say, month, I was just non-stop crying, and then I wouldn't speak either. I'd refuse to speak, and I would just make noises. And obviously over time I did gain that trust, but every time obviously in the UK, you go to different years every year, so you have a new teacher. I never trusted teachers, so you could see I had the mistrust challenge in that one.
I think some people would have that same background and experience as well.
Yeah.
And that actually also quite nicely aligns with like Bowlby's theory, because he also talks about this despair when you're separated. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So with that, you can see the similarities between both works. Well, I can you as well?
Yeah, I can actually. I did pick up on quite a few. Do you have any you'd like to mention?
I think the main one is they both highlight how important the early relationships that you develop are, and how they both believe that the early experiences in these relationships, if they are negative, can lead to difficulties later in life with relationships, with anything that happens with them.
Yeah, I do agree. Like, definitely, that's one that I
Yeah.
mainly picked up on, was that both theories agree that those early interactions with caregivers have significant
Yeah.
long-term effects. And I was wondering, Charlotte, does Bowlby also have like phases in his theory? Because that would support my similarity.
Yeah, he does. He's got like 4 phases of attachment where the child basically goes from not having a specific person they focus on or like are attached to having really specific person they focus on and form a really strong attachment with, to being able to have multiple attachments and bond with a lot of people. So four phases of attachment.
So with that, then I can see how both of those theories see development as sequential. So Bowlby, as Charlotte said, outlines phases of attachment, while Erikson describes psychosocial stages that build on one another. So neither of them see development as random. It kind of both unfolds in steps, with earlier stages shaping later ones. So that's quite interesting. So with those similarities in mind, I think there could be differences that I didn't pick up on. What do you think?
The main difference that I've picked up on after hearing both experts speak is when you hear about their stages, Bowlby focuses on infancy and early childhood and just those main central years, whereas Erikson covers those early years but then goes on to cover the entire lifespan and all the stages you go through throughout your entire life, whereas Bowlby stops after a certain age.
No, really observant.
Yeah.
It's great. I was wondering if the experts had any more input about the differences that maybe we didn't pick up on.
Yeah, I agree, because I think Bowlby really talks about how the quality of attachment itself determines emotional health. So as you were saying, like if the child doesn't form positive attachment in the critical period of up to 2.5 years, it can really much determine emotional health. Whereas I feel like Erikson offers a bit of a broader range of ways that attachment or social relationships can influence the self and also the social concept, because it's also about the quality of support through the different stages, and not just about attachment but like about a long exploration and autonomy and identity formation. So I think he offers a bit of a broader range.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yours is more like emotional like focus, and mine more like social and emotional.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So all this talk about, early childhood and stuff really takes me back to my young years when I was in school, and my relationship with my mothers and my teachers. And I was particularly thinking about my first day of school. So, I remember clinging to my mum's hand at the classroom door, and I was really nervous, as you'd be at that age. But because I'd always felt safe and comforted by her at home, I actually calmed down pretty quickly. So she reassured me that she'd be back after school. And because I trusted that, I walked in without crying. And that made me realise that it's literally Bowlby and Erikson in action. So my secure attachment with my caregiver made separation less stressful. And Erikson would say I developed basic trust, which is a sense that people will show up when they say they will. What about your experience, on your first day, Ellie?
It was very similar to you. I was a little bit upset when I realised what was going on and how my mother would be leaving me for the day or for a couple of hours. But then when she got down and explained that she will be back and we will be going back home after this, you're going to go in here and you're going to go with this teacher, and then the teacher was introduced to me. And then when I went in and trusted that she'll be back, and then actually did come back at the end of the day, I think it made it a lot easier the next day, as I was just dropped off and went straight in, and then that trust was then just ingrained from the first day.
Wow, very fascinating, and so amazing to see how we can apply these theories to our own experiences. I wonder, nowadays how those theories of Bowlby and Erikson would manifest, into the current generation or the current kids of today. What do the experts think?
Yeah, I think that Erikson theory is influential today because it focuses and it helps parents and educators take note of their social and emotional well-being, and that they have challenges with each stages. And you can see that in education now, they try and get on the children's good side by adding reward systems, stickers, prizes and stuff like. And they take like, there's days where they do like careers days where they bring their parents in, talk about their experience. So you can see that obviously they try to get on the good side of children.
Yeah, I think I really much agree. I think schools nowadays really much support identity development, so like the exploration of different interests. Like I remember like we had a time where we could freely choose what we want to do. Like, do we want to go outside? Do we want to have, I don't know, iPad time or something like this? So I think they really much support this for positive self-concept. And also I think there's a high emphasis on social learning, also between children, like also obviously the secure relationship between teacher and student or child, but also the high influence peers can have on an individual's learning. So I think that really nicely connects there, Bowlby and Erikson, and kind of makes a broader range. Do you guys take anything from like what we said as well?
Yeah, I would think that you can see now how the teachers are there they do really implement these relationships with the children and make sure that the children are settled in, and then they also have like transition periods now, whereas even from primary school to high school, if you're talking about later years, in my school we had transition periods where only certain years would go in one day. So I think that really helps the children nowadays to settle in, and that has really been influenced by these two works.
Yeah, this emphasis on the key person as well. Yeah.
That stuff is really interesting, and it's really clear how relevant they are, in today's day and age. So, even though Bowlby focused more on attachment and evolutionary survival, and then Erikson looked at identity and psychosocial challenges, the ideas really do complement each other quite well, and they both highlight how powerful those first relationships are and how much they shape who we become later in life. So, to wrap it up, we'd just like to thank Charlotte and Ikra for being our experts for the session. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you really much.
Yes, and also to the viewers. We hope you have learned something new, and me and Ellie would love to be seeing you in the next episode.
Bye.
Thank you for joining.
Thank
Thank you
you
for
for joining us.
listening.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Goodbye.